All right, everyone, so welcome. So today we are going to look at, this is a GForce Arms RPX9, which is it's a Turkish reproduction of a Glock Gen 3 handgun. This one being the Glock 19 size variant, I believe, with a magwell. Has a pretty cool finish, and the individual that wanted me to do a trigger polish job on this for a demonstration acquired this pistol for $175. So you can't knock the value there. We're going to talk about the trigger here in a moment, but safety first always. We're going to visually and physically inspect that's a clear handgun, no magazine, no ammunition in the firearm, because we are going to have to manipulate the trigger to disassemble the gun. The optic on here is a SIG, I think Romeo Zero, SIG Romeo Zero optic on a K cut plate, but these are the RMSC Shield style cut plate. However, that was not part of the $175 in the purchase, so quite a value in and of itself just for the gun. So the owner of this gun brought this to our attention that the trigger is rather, it's really hard to describe, but it's very heavy on the pull up to a wall. There is a distinct wall. The wall is extremely heavy, and as you push through it, it then has a very unpronounced but yet very light break. But you're applying with what feels like way too much pressure to get the light break that you have. The reset is Glock-esque. It is a heavy, feels like a pretty heavy return spring because it is. I'm interested to see the shape of the connector because it is feels almost like a Glock New York trigger is the closest thing I can equate it to. This gun feels like it has a New York trigger in it. So we're going to go ahead and take that slack up again one more time. And we're going to press, and the brake was a little better that time, but it's respectfully it's not what I would call a good trigger. Definitely not my humble opinion. Big Glock guy, big Glock fan. All the Gen 3, a worn Gen 3 trigger, to me is still one of the best Glock triggers, followed by the factory Gen 5 trigger, and then I personally am a huge fan of the Glock Performance trigger, but that's a little bit different geometry. So for Glock style factory triggers or reproductions, this is a tough one. This is not a good trigger. So we're going to go ahead and disassemble the firearm, and we're going to polish it up, take a look at the trigger as we do so, and see if it does more or less for us than it does in the standard Glock. So we're going to go ahead and depress that. Ooh, and you see I'm all the way to the rear, and it was almost like a delayed let off. Very, very interesting. So, but it does disassemble just like it almost feels like the striker was stuck because I couldn't get the disassembly notches down. Get a little pressure off. Okay, so we'll look at the upper. It has a dual recoil spring like a Gen 4 or 5 style. It's a Glock barrel, or standard pattern barrel. So we'll go ahead and move in the disassembly, see if it disassembles the same. Very gritty on the back plate, but it does come off. And the striker comes out. Oh, interesting. A pin came out. I don't know if that's a component of the striker or what that is. We're going to set that aside. I'm not sure where that came from.
It's a bonus pin.
Oh, I see where it is. So this is simply the plunger it's just simply the polymer plunger at the end of the extracting the rod that retains the extractor. I'm forgetting the appropriate nomenclature, pardon me. So let's see if we can't work that extractor out. Extractor appears pretty standard. Again, we'll put the parts that we're not going to polish up out of the way here, but we are going to polish that portion of the striker, and we are going to polish this portion of that firing pin block safety. So put the spring up here so we don't lose it. So, okay, not too bad. There's quite a bit of lubricant, quite a bit of oil, and from my understanding, this was a newly purchased gun, so I doubt the owner well, you want to be careful getting fluid in that firing pin channel. So that's something we'll probably wipe down and make sure we get that as dry as we can, maybe even put some shop air in there. So that's it for the slide. See how the takedown looks on the rear, pretty stout. So we're definitely going to go with a breech block to go ahead and take these pins out. Use the little bit bigger hammer for these pins. This is the same diameter punch as a Glock tool, so I didn't have my actual Glock tool on hand, but Oh, yeah, that's one of the tightest top pins I've felt. Let's get a little, use my knuckles to get some more torque on that. This will take some work probably. Oh yeah. Pins out. Go ahead and do the same on this this rear. Okay, so we got our pins out. Set those off to the side. Go ahead and take our breech block out. A little odd to get it started, but we're getting there. There we go. There you go. There's some tight tolerance. It feels like some pretty tight tolerances in here. I had to work a block out like this in a while, but out it comes. Go ahead and take our, yeah, everything's, to me, appears pretty standard Gen 3 to this point. So go ahead and take out our trigger bar and see how this mechanism looks. That's it for the frame. So again, we'll set our frame parts off to the side here that we're not going to polish. So we're going to polish the tip here that interacts with the plunger. There is a there's a dot, a pretty pronounced dot on the side of that. I know that was a Gen 4 feature to help some stabilization. Uses the standard, looks like Glock style spring in that S configuration. So we'll take that apart. Cruciform looks about the same. Looks a little more pronounced of a curve and indentation, and I'm wondering if that has something to do with the trigger geometry. The connector though appears just like a standard Glock connector. I see no difference in geometry, or the shelf looks about the same. I'm wondering if that curve has anything to do with the take up and the pull. This is well lubricated in here, but definitely some, you know, little machine marks, little chatter marks. Looks like a standard Glock trigger bar. So we'll go ahead and apply our fits polish to all the parts we're going to polish, and go ahead and knock out all the polishing in one take, and then we'll put it back together and see how it shakes out. Apply liberally. You don't have to apply too much. I'm probably applying a little more than I need. I've had this same thing of Flitz polish for, I want to say, coming up on at least 5, maybe closer to 10 years. Polished quite a few. I've only ever used it for polishing Glock triggers. I've never really had a need to polish any other metal parts to a mirror finish. But that's works well, gets the job done, and it's you know, stored out in the garage in my tool area, and it's held up just fine over the years. So,
have you ever used a diamond lapping compound?
I have not used diamond lapping compound. Would that remove material?
It does, but it's on a microscopic level. We're talking like microns here.
So that's my esteemed colleague's machinist background speaking through there. I wouldn't want to use anything that uses. I don't think this is a lapping compound. I try to, my goal here is not to remove material, it's to smooth the material out, if that makes sense. But on a micron level, I'm assuming that is removing some microns to smooth it. But we'll go ahead and start using our Dremel to polish here. Try to be somewhat methodical. Just start on one side, try to finish the side or the angle you're at. And the whole concept of this is to polish all of the parts that interact with other metal. Metal on metal contacts, smooth it out. Get that nice mirrored finish. Let the Flitz do its job. I've seen guys use like needle nose or use pliers to hold on to the parts. I don't get them hot enough to where it hurts my grip. I would recommend wearing gloves, but I don't. Making sure I'm giving this one all the treatment I can to get anything that's not smoothed out. So this one will get hot quick on you, so you want to be efficient in your Dremel time here. But again, the only thing that interacts with you just go around the rim a little bit, taking care of the rim and taking care of the tip.
You're gonna get all the rim job.
Yeah, I figured I was putting that one on a T for you. Figured you'd take that. We love our back and forth.
All a good rim job.
that circumference there is almost, or that angle there is like perfect fit for the wheel. There's a little departure from the geometry on the Glock trigger bar. If I had another trigger bar out, we could compare them maybe in a future video, but we want to get back here on the back side of where the connector interacts with the cruciform portion of the trigger bar and the rear of the trigger bar. That has a big say on what the trigger feels like. You jump on you once in a while like that, but it's not a big deal. You can just hold on to it like a man. Again, you want to be careful to stay off of the polymer here. Try to keep your wheel just on the metal portion. Again, mirror finish on everything, and that covers all the parts that we need to polish. So just take a paper towel or shop cloth rag or whatever. Just want to make sure you take all any excess off. But looks like this came out pretty darn good and mirrored. So I spent a little extra time on the connector and on that cruciform portion. Just really wanted to smooth that out to see if that'll have any impact for us on the trigger pull. Probably not, as this isn't like it doesn't change any geometry or change any significant components. But you never know. Sometimes taking out a little grit can go a long way.
That's where that lapping compound may come in a little more handy.
Yep, yeah, for sure. And that's where you just got to be conscious of your tolerances and be conscious of, there are certain parameters that the trigger needs to function properly. The material's there for a reason, but you're absolutely right. There may be some merit to a little bit more aggressive shaping. You probably don't need to leave your optic and your frame and your slide right next to where you're doing the polish, but for the video purpose, we had it sitting here. I didn't think that one through. So, all right, so we'll put this thing back together, and I'm just curious to see, as y'all are, if this had any effect. So, start with our S pattern hook. You want to be cautious, but these hook in pretty easily. I want to come on the bottom angle there. Oop, I thought I had it. Get it there. Adding some lubrication to this wouldn't be a bad idea, but it's not absolutely necessary to get a feel. So get that reassembled. Back into our frame. It's pretty tight fit. Tolerances on this pretty good actually. So we'll get that in. I'll go ahead and take our polymer pin, put that polymer pin in the back. Just kind of holds everything in place. This pin is a really tight fit. Tap it. Nice and even. Cool. I like the magwell and the finish on this. The finish on the magwell and the slide on this. I gotta give it credit for that. So move into breech block first. And that is I'm gonna use a polymer. Let's send that home. Take our small pin up top first. Get that set up. Polymer. Interesting. Never had a pin. Just had to get it started. Once it got started, use the non-marring here, but get it down and even. But definitely one thing I will note is this is the pins on this gun are definitely tighter than any factory Glock, which I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Just something to note. Go and insert our slide stop lever, and then go ahead and get our pin going. I figured that one's going to give some resistance. So this one you got to, so on this gun you really got to give a little forward motion on that slide stop lever to get it aligned. Get that pin to go through. Might need a little help on the breech block. Allow me to get a little pressure on that. There we go. All right, interesting little snag on reassembly here. So I'll back this out just a little bit. But it's in the groove. And the spring is interacting with the top pin as it should. So we're not out of order in our assembly here. So let me just pull this out and get a view. So it's got to be real pretty far over. So I'm going to start on this side. See if that'll help me. There we go. Get it through. So we're in now. Pins where it needs to be. And there was a little click there, so we're clicked in. Everything is functioning as it should. Trigger returns there. Still a pretty stout pull, but again, we'll finish up the upper before we make our final determination. So start with our plunger. Screw seated. That in there. Come in with the extractor. It's reassembling just like a standard Glock. We had the little plunger come out on this on disassembly, so we want to be cautious that that's properly installed. Again, metal to metal, so this goes down to the extractor. We'll go ahead and put our striker, this polished portion, back in. Lines up well. Again, if you take this down in the future, we might, take a little shop air to that channel. Do our slide to the rear. Do a little check, push the plunger. Do hear the firing pin moving free, so it doesn't appear to have any hydro lock or any too much fluid buildup in there. That's a quick way to check if you have debris in your channel. And that's, again, reassembly. Getting our rails lined up a little interesting. Trigger is to the rear, so let's go ahead and release that. Striker should be able to send it. Again, no magazine in the gun, safety visual, physical inspection, and so it actually does have, in my opinion, one of the better impacts on a trigger I've felt. Still a very heavy trigger, but what I'm noticing is it's a much more consistent pull now. Whereas before it had a very odd point of release. You can anticipate the release of the striker a lot more consistently here. So there may have been something on that. There may have been some grit or some just grime present on the trigger but we'll give it back to the owner, see what he feels about the difference. But I do think our first example of a reproduction Glock 19 or Glock pattern Gen 3 reproduction firearm, we've proven that a little bit of work on it can have an impact. So we'll see how that shakes out in future comparisons. But thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll be doing some more of these jobs in the future and doing some more comparisons of these guns. So thanks everyone.